Having a baby changes everything. Having a baby
doesn't have to change everything. Hey, I'm Kevin. I'm single and almost all of my friends are married, but that hasn't stopped me from being in their lives. In this podcast, I will talk with these friends and try to prove that, though friendships between married and single people might seem intimidating at first, it's really not that hard. Trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. I have absolutely no vocational qualifications whatsoever. I might be coming at it with a Christian worldview, but I don't work in ministry and I'm not a counselor. What I do have to offer is experience. Over a third of my life spent being what my friends have dubbed a professional third wheel. We are back with my friends Ryan and Lauren from episode 1.
Hi, everybody.
It's good to be back.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's a better night. We've got some energy this time and it's not
true.
so late and yeah, we're doing better. So yes, we wanted to talk again because you were the first friends I had that I knew long before you started having kids, and then you had a kid and we transitioned through all that together and are still really close. And I think that's a really important transition to talk about. And I think that it can be a real comfort to people because it's a really intimidating thing to go through when your kids start, or your friends start having kids, not your kids start having friends. That's different, I imagine, but
that's more of a relief than it is a burden.
Especially.
Sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, so we did hit this in the first episode, but just as a refresher, how old is your daughter?
Right now, she is 3.5.
Okay, yes. And very much acting like a 4 or 5 year old.
Yeah.
She is very smart.
Yeah, she's real smart.
Yes.
But she's still a 3-year-old at heart, which creates an interesting challenge for us.
Yeah, I got to see their daughter when she was born. I think it was the day she was born, wasn't it? That we came to the hospital, me and 2 other friends. We got lost in the garage and found a way in. And I held her and she cried and it was great.
I mean, if it's any consolation, she also cried when we held her.
Yeah.
So
she wasn't super happy for a while.
She was inconsolable for the first little bit.
Yeah.
She didn't have a good time.
Yeah. No, it's fine. But again, in the first episode, we talked about it, but it was actually a moment I had with you guys while Lauren was pregnant, actually, that inspired this podcast because we were also kind of just like, I wonder how this is going to change everything. You know, are we going to be able to do the things that we used to do? Or, you know, are we still going to be as close as we are when she's born? And then she was born and we were sitting on the couch, not even that long after she was born, she'd gone to sleep and we were just sitting there and you're like, I was like, remember when we thought this was going to change things? And here we are. This feels a lot like it did before. And so it does change things, but it doesn't have to change everything. And, you know, I think your friendship really just gets stronger through all of it. When that moment happened, that was the moment that I was just like, people actually need to know this is possible. I should probably share that with people because whether you have as many married friends as I do or not, like it helps you to make married friends knowing that like you're not going to lose them as soon as they start to have kids or whatever necessarily. So yeah, it's a real encouragement. I think a lot of this stuff is very intimidating. And that was just a real like light bulb for me of like, oh, if you put in the work and you really love each other, unlike the old commercials, a baby does not have to change everything, you know?
Yeah. And I would say that's true too on our side as well. We also thought everything would change with our friends, and to the degree that we allowed that to sort of creep in and made the assumption that everything had to change, it did. But when we committed to those relationships that mattered to us, like the one we had with you, we found that it didn't change. It got different,
Right.
but it didn't degrade. It got better. It got more rich.
I think so too. Not as much stretching your friendship, but more like flexing it, I think.
As your friend's belly stretches, so will your friendship.
Well, no, not stretches, flexes. But yeah. So I'll do another episode about kind of just hanging out with couples who already have kids when you meet them, because I think that's a little bit different. It's a little more upfront rather than just kind of transitioning with your friend. And in some ways, I think it's kind of harder sometimes to get to know people when they already have kids. But
life is crazier.
It is, and it takes a lot longer because you're having to kind of deal with the interruptions and you're splitting your attention a lot of different ways and all of that. But so we'll dig into that with a different group of friends. But for us, just, you know, we're friends. Kid is on the way. Let's start there. So I wrote this little thing. I want to read it because I think it's fun. So there you are. Your married friends have sat you down saying that they have something they want to tell you. Half of you already suspects what they're going to say because married people will only do this for you for like 2 things and they already have a house. Then they tell you they are pregnant. You are genuinely overjoyed, but there is a tiny part that is fearful of what that means for your friendship. First of all, this is a great chance for single people with all their extra time and resources to really flex that, to be there for their friends when they, it's scary to go through pregnancy and having kid and all that. And any kind of, I guess, consistency can be helpful, maybe. So it's a good chance to be like, I can be there for these people. They're going to have increased needs in the coming future. I can help meet those needs if they'll have me, I guess. I did not see it that way when it happened with you guys. Sorry, you were first. I was still learning, but like, it's, you just be there, I guess.
Yes.
So yeah, single people, this is a great time to show your stuff. So during the pregnancy, what are some things that I guess single people should expect to change for their married friends? Because we just don't always, unless it's happening to you, you just don't realize sometimes all those things. So from y'all's perspective, what are some things that you're just like, this is how our life is different now that we're
While
pregnant?
you're still pregnant.
Yeah, while you're still pregnant.
Yeah. I think that we specifically weren't prepared for a kid. She was a surprise, and we were very scared. We were scared everything would change. It was our first. How do we process this? And I think we probably spent the majority of my pregnancy scared. Dare I say all of my pregnancy scared.
All.
So having friends who can come alongside and say, it's okay. I won't stop being your friend. Not everything will change. Like, you will weather this. The Lord is bigger than this. You may or may not know if they've been trying for a really, really long time. And they may have told you at 5 weeks pregnant, and they may have told you at 20 weeks pregnant, because they
Right.
might have had a history of loss before. Not many people tell people about miscarriages and the like. It's one of the hardest things to go through ever. And it's always in that early period. I shouldn't say always, but often in that early period. And so if that happens and you are aware of it, know that you are in a very privileged position. Treat it really, really tenderly, and know that that's a lot of trust that they've given you. And count that as a blessing, because it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are very afraid to even talk about, like you said, being pregnant early, but out of fear that that will happen, and then they'll have to go tell everybody that it didn't work out.
Right.
And but it's also like, it's a huge privilege, as you said. Like, we had a miscarriage in our small group, and they came and brought it to us, and we were able to cry together and pray together, and it was a huge privilege, because I'm like, don't suffer alone if you don't have to. Like, find some people who really can suffer with you and do that, because it's hard enough already. You know?
I agree.
Yeah.
So it's really a time to kind of tread carefully. It depends on your relationship with the person, honestly. It depends on their history and how complicated the pregnancy is, because again, it can be really, really complicated.
Yeah.
One, they won't be drinking alcohol. And two, maybe they have gestational diabetes and they have to be on a specific diet for a really long time, or heaven forbid, bedridden. That wasn't my story. I had other things going on, but there's a lot that can go wrong in pregnancy. And so continuing to just come alongside that person, no matter what happens. Maybe you're the one that they ask to throw you a baby shower. I asked one of my single friends to throw me a baby shower.
Yeah.
And she did awesome. So because you've got time, resources, emotional energy, that maybe someone with a whole family is constantly being depleted, I think that that's a really awesome place for a single person to step in.
Yeah. You said something about being afraid the whole time. And like, I think that's a good case for, like, if I hear y'all are about to have a kid and I have a fear reaction to that, it kind of helps me be like, well, they've got afraid covered. I should just stop being afraid and just be there for them, because if we're all three afraid, this is not going to go as well. So maybe I can just serve them by not being afraid, so that's a good one. And the alcohol thing is great, because again, it's just something you don't think about until it happens. And like, it stinks sometimes. It depends on how much you drink alcohol. Like, I have a friend who's pregnant right now she's a huge margarita person. And so that's been really hard for her. So we don't go to Mexican places right now, because we're just not even going to do that to her. It hurts. So, that's kind of a way to just passively serve, is just to not even put her in that situation, and I don't think her husband's drinking just out of solidarity. So like, I can just do that with him when I'm with them, and it's not a huge sacrifice. What are some other ways just during this time that you think single people could serve? Not just things that we should know, but just ways we can actually go above and beyond.
Yeah, well, I think really practically manual labor. When Lauren was pregnant, and I think when a lot of women are pregnant, the ability to do physical things is just harder. And there's a point where it's just not safe. And so if you have the ability to literally lend a hand, then that's really a big thing. And the husbands of those wives will really appreciate that they're not the only person taking care of some of those things if
Yeah.
you're able to help with that.
I was nesting hardcore and I was probably 8 or maybe even 9 months pregnant at that point. And I had 2 friends come over and help me shampoo the rug and like beat them all outside. I mean, like I have never done that in my life. And for some reason, while I was pregnant, it had to be done.
That's so funny.
And so that was a very practical thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think, Kevin, you hit on it with some other points around alcohol, but just food preferences in general, whether it's different cravings that have happened or whether it's medical requirements because of different complications that can go on with pregnancy. Just be willing to have somebody else dictate what you're going to consume and what your preferences are going to be for a little while.
Yeah.
And just be willing to be on board, because especially if it's their first kid, like you said, scared and confused, like that's already covered. And so
Yeah.
the more you can be on board for support and eliminate those little things, it can just be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Completely a left turn, but this is small but bothers me to no end.
Excellent.
Do not comment on a pregnant woman's appearance. I feel like at this point we shouldn't have to say it, but somehow we still do. Just don't say anything. Even if you think it's a compliment, something like, gosh, wow, you're 8 months pregnant? You look so skinny. No, don't even say that because you don't know how she feels in her heart. Don't talk about, the one that I hate is, wow, you look ready to pop.
Yeah, I hear that one
Nope.
sometimes.
No, she doesn't. She's not a balloon. It's
She's
not
a
going to
miserable human.
happen.
Yes.
So just anything like that at all, don't say. Because even like with subsequent pregnancies, I've heard people say, wow, you're a lot bigger at this point than you were last time.
Oh,
Well,
no.
yeah, because your belly, like you stretched out and then now there's more room to grow. That's just, don't say it. And this is not advice for just single people
No,
out
this
there.
is anybody.
There's somebody out there that needs to hear this.
Yeah. Well, I wonder too, if you have friends who, they've confided in you like, hey, we're trying to start a family right now, and it takes them a long time or they have a difficulty doing it. If you've been trusted with that information, there's a level of like checking in to see if they're okay, like emotionally. But I would say probably I wouldn't want to make a comment on that very often because there's already enough pressure if they're trying. If it's not going well, they're probably already frustrated. They don't need a reminder. They're very aware or whatever. So I think there's a way to be loving in that, but I don't think it involves checking every single time you see them.
Yeah, just don't.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward, baby has just been born and new parent friends have returned home. What are some ways that single friends or other friends in general can just stay involved and serve during this period of time?
Yeah. I know we and a lot of other married friends that we have who are having children, we make this commitment to ourselves that we're not going to isolate. People even give us the advice of not isolating. And then all of a sudden we turn one day and realize that we've isolated. And when your first kid comes in, I mean, we've only got one right now, but when that first one comes in and you just have no idea what to expect, how to handle it, everything's coming at you fast and you don't know. And so something that we really, really appreciated in that time was when we had friends reaching out to us. And if you have a relationship with a couple that's having a baby and they've let you into that process and then being pregnant in those conversations leading up to it, then reaching out to them and being the proactive person to initiate communication and initiate hanging out and initiating spending time together, that is such a huge help to that married couple who's just going to default to staying home and doing things in just that isolated 3-person setup.
Yeah. Having a newborn is so stressful, so much more stressful than I even thought. And the movies don't do it justice. It's stressful. It is wonderful, but it is stressful. We had this idea that was kind of informed by society around us that we have to like isolate and figure things out as a family and set up very strict boundaries with people that were just trying to help, honestly. It's one of my biggest regrets looking back. We were so scared, we were so dumbstruck and out of our depth that we really could have used the support of our family and friends that we had already said, no, we're going to figure things out as a family. And I think I'm not knocking that idea, but I am saying that you don't know what you're getting into. So I think if your friends tell you that, if they tell you, we'll want some time to ourselves, to step back, hold that with an open hand, because things might change that week. They come back from the
Wait a
hospital. Don't take a vacation that week.
Yeah.
So I think culture kind of tells us that we need to be self-sufficient. There's like a hurt pride when we ask for help from others. And it doesn't mean that we're not capable. It means that you are letting in the friends that are going to be in your life for the rest of your life into this very stressful period. Why not let them be around and let them help now? You asking for help isn't a deficiency. It's about sharing your life with those you care about and those that care about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a representation of what the family of Christ looks like.
Amen.
At the end of the day, if we really are brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers and aunts and uncles and cousins and those things with our local church and all Christians at large, then that newborn phase is a time where we can start to live out the implications of what it means that we're actually a family.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to care for your friends is so readily available and so easy to jump in on.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you said that, Lauren, about letting your friends help, because if you intend for those same friends to be around your kids as they grow up, why not start now?
Right.
Why would you delay it when you are in the most need and wait until it's just fun, just get it all? Because there's still things that we do. I still help out around here now that you don't need me as much now as you might have needed me then, or things that I did then would be way more helpful than even the same things that I do now, taking out the trash when you've got a newborn versus taking out the trash when you've got a 3-year-old is a different weight,
Yeah. If you've been invited in, you're not in the way.
Yeah.
You're available help.
Yeah, and don't assume you're in the way unless they tell you you're in the way,
Yeah.
because most of the time you're not. They're probably happy you're there.
Yeah.
That's been my experience anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, churches have meal trains and stuff like that you can hop in on sometimes if you're a part of a church and your group has done something like that. Our small group we've got like 4 of them going right now. It's bonkers. Yeah. But that's a super easy practical. You don't have to be in a meal train to bring your friends a meal. Maybe check with them first and make sure somebody else isn't doing it. But you can stop and pick something up. You can do something home cooked. As Ryan wisely said in episode 1, bring paper plates and stuff so they don't have more dishes to do afterwards.
It's so good.
It's such good advice. But so that's an easy one. And again, what you said earlier, Ryan, about just physical labor, that applies here. Like I've heard some stories of some very heroic single people going over and mowing couples' lawns and picking up groceries for them and watching their pets and things like that while they're in that transition phase of we don't know what we're doing and we're just trying to figure it out.
And it's worth noting that on some of those practical things, mowing lawns, watching pets, picking up groceries, even food if there's meal trains and stuff, whatever it is, cleaning the counters, like whatever it is that's going on, you're going to have to see those needs. You're going to have your eyes peeled to notice that they need to be done. And then you're going to have to ask to do them. And depending on your relationship with your friend, maybe even you're going to have to tell them that you're going to do it. Read the room. You're going to have to seek those out. They're not going to ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's something like dishes or taking out the trash or whatever, if you just do them, nobody's ever going to be mad that you did them. That'd probably be very thankful.
I think some fringe, maybe unorthodox ways that we were helped when we had a newborn were, one, we got home from the hospital, and this is so common, but I had no idea. We got home from the hospital and we had to text some friends to get us some different size diapers because she was smaller than we had expected. And so she didn't fit in her size 1 diapers. We had to text some friends to get us some newborn diapers. And postpartum stuff out there. Ladies, I didn't know anything about that. And our friends got me that too. But I think when they brought that stuff over, they also stayed for a while And this was so amazing. One of our friends held our daughter because she would only fall asleep when someone was holding her, obviously, for a couple hours so she could sleep and so we could sleep.
Yeah.
And we slept blissfully for like 3 hours, and it had been a while. Like I said, newborn with our daughter was not easy. And I remember that moment as so beautiful and so caring. So that, I mean, yeah, that's kind of like unorthodox things I can think of. There's the not commenting on stuff again. I don't know if you don't have kids, if you'll have opinions on this or not. If you do, then you do. But don't comment on parenting decisions, on whether they're formula feeding or if they're nursing, on whether they're sleep training or they're not, on whether they're disciplining their kids well or not. I think that's one area where new moms really get a barrage of ways to raise their kid. They have to figure that out for themselves. There is no one set way to raise a child because there is no one set child in the world. We're all different. So that's something that you have to figure out for yourself. I think that unsolicited advice, right?
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
ask you, it's different.
Yes.
But unsolicited advice can really start to reverberate inside of a new mom's head and drive her crazy
Yeah.
off of, an hour of sleep.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, asking questions about their parenting or what they're doing can be a really cool way and a really great way to grow your relationship as you dig into what they're thinking and how they're doing things and what's going on. And they may even appreciate the ability to think through out loud. But if you enter into that and you do go there, be cautious that you don't turn your questions, don't accidentally become
Yeah.
passive aggressive comments or veiled advice or whatever it is. Have genuine curiosity for what's going on. And if you are asked for your opinion and you are asked for advice, do also be cautious that you don't overrun the rope that you have and then just barrage onto everything. Have wisdom and self-control in knowing that that person you're talking to is overwhelmed and stressed and is getting a bunch of unsolicited advice from
Right.
all sorts of
Yes.
places all around them.
Something, Kevin, when it was happening, did you know that I was going through really bad postpartum depression?
Only because you told me, I think. And I mean, I just assumed you were exhausted, which was true.
Sure.
It wasn't everything.
Sure.
But yeah, I think you were very kind of clear about your needs and kind of
Yeah.
experience. You're generally pretty transparent about stuff, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and I'll be really honest, because I think people need to hear that this experience is really common. It was the first time in my life that I had had suicidal ideations, and there was a specific moment at 4 a.m. where I was trying to get our daughter to sleep, and I was like, I don't want to be here, and that was very, very scary, especially with a new daughter. I'm choking up, y'all. It was very scary. And I think in moments like that, moms really need some people to push in a little bit because it can be really scary to even tell someone. You can be viewed as irresponsible, even saying, this is supposed to be a wonderful, sweet time. And you can even have that thought in your own head of like, why don't I feel this way? Why don't I feel these warm fuzzies that I'm supposed to, quote unquote, feel?
Yeah.
And so pushing in emotionally, because postpartum recovery is no joke. Your body goes through a lot, but your hormones, they go way up and then they drastically dip off real fast. And your brain chemistry is just like altered. And for me specifically, and I know for a lot of other women out there, it was like that. And so friends in general push into even her heart. She's got this shiny new baby, and it's fun to go over and hold the baby and cradle her. But while you're holding and cradling the baby, what is your friend going through? Where is she at mentally? Where is she at in her heart? How can you help her? I'm not really even sure what to tell people to do necessarily,
I
but
know.
the biggest thing you can tell someone is that it is normal.
Yeah.
Like, this is normal. It happens all the time.
Well, the fact that, it hits you out of, left field tells me that it's not been talked about enough because
No.
somebody should have said that. And you typically do your research when you go into experiences like that. So like the fact that you hadn't read about it or, read an honest enough account about it to really kind of know is.
And I think there was some self-denial too. You don't want to have that. I didn't want to get on antidepressants
course.
for
Yeah.
months, but
Yeah.
I did, and I'm grateful that I kind of took a piece of humble pie
Yeah.
and did that.
I think too, wife is priority one because she's the one going through it. But I've also had some friends, and not even postpartum, but just other mental things as well that have been just really degrading to them. Their husbands have just been like, I feel so helpless. I don't know what to do. Like all I do is listen all the time, but I feel like I should be able to do more and I can't. So even checking in with both of them and just asking two individual things, maybe together, maybe separately, I don't know. But like, I think checking in is good for that. And
Yeah.
I don't remember as much when that started for you, but I do remember the day that you started getting the warm fuzzies because you're just like, oh my gosh, I love my daughter so much, Kevin. I just want to eat her.
Yeah.
And then I was
Also
concerned.
totally normal.
Yes.
I looked it up. It is backed up by science.
Yes, it
the
is.
desire to eat is a reaction against the over cute
Cute aggression. Yes.
Cute aggression. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's a legit scientific thing. Look
Yeah.
it up, people. I'm normal.
Yep. I mean, I've heard people say that baby is so cute. I just want to punch it in the face. Like that's the extreme of cute
Yeah.
aggression. So
Yeah.
yes,
Your brain can't handle it.
totally normal.
Yep. And I'll just add like that time for Lauren going through that depression was confusing and hard. And for me was filled with a lot of prayer and a lot of continuing to do the next thing. And I really needed the support that I got from friends, from other men, especially from husbands that had gone through it, but also from the single men in my life who were willing to just listen and be there and just give me another voice to talk to and another person to point me to Jesus, because that's what I needed in that time.
It goes way deeper than I even realized when we started this conversation because, isolating is already kind of dangerous enough when you're having all these new experiences. But like when you have all that kind of fear and then you've got the postpartum stuff going on and you're just in a house and that house is life, that house is the world. You really do need something to enter from the outside to prove to you that that's not true. It's not the world. It will end. It's not, what you're seeing, all the tiredness and screaming and all that you're dealing with all the time. That is not reality. Ultimately, there's a world out there that you can still get to. I mean, you're not trapped in that forever. And I imagine that definitely would help at least to have that every once in a while.
Yeah, and I do want to say this isn't everyone's experience,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for
Sometimes
sure.
the newborn phase is wonderful and fun, and people don't go through this. So,
Right.
I mean, this was just our specific experience.
Right.
So take it with a grain of salt.
Well, and again, I
but-
think checking in regardless. I mean, if they're having a great time, you only get to hear about them having a great time, right?
Yeah.
But if they're not, then they really need you to listen. And just
Right.
having that other person to say, you're not crazy, it's good. I think just on the practical things before we kind of move on, one thing in my experience that I found that is a very easy way to surprise parents is if you're holding a baby and the baby starts screaming and they're not screaming for a reason, they don't need to be changed or whatever. Maybe they need to be fed or whatever. You not just handing that baby back immediately surprises people because, and I'll be the first to admit it took me a long time to get to this point because when a baby screams, you're just like, how do I make it stop?
Yeah.
But if you're the parent, you kind of get used to it after a while. You build up an immunity that your friends who are just coming in don't have. And so just by like,
Callous.
yeah, well, I guess so. But it's also just like, I don't want to communicate to my friends that when things get hard with their kids, I'm just going to leave, And like, I mean, that's not like a direct thing, but like in my head, it can be, equated. And so I try to make an effort to at least hold on for a little while. Again, if I can't do anything about it because I can't feed them, then I'm going to have to hand them over eventually. But
Yeah, every mom is different, but personally, the sinking feeling that I got when my kid would start screaming and anyone would immediately hand them back to me was like, okay, like
Right.
go.
And that's a skill. Like you can go from like just another person to like the matriarch in your community if you just hang on to the kid after they
so
start
true.
screaming. Like that is
Well, you know what? There was actually, this is a wonderful story. So there was someone new who had come to Bible study at our church, And she brought her, I don't know, he might have been 9 months at that point, maybe 6 or 9 months. And she brought him. And one of my dear friends, who's an older woman in the church, whom I dearly, dearly love, held him the whole time outside of the room even. And she got to experience this Bible study completely free of that distraction. It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was one
yeah.
of the coolest moments. And it's honestly something that she pointed back to a lot as her reason for being a part of our church.
Wow.
You never know what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, kind of transitioning out of newborn phase and just talking about just hanging out, interacting with your friends' kids in general. Because, you know, again, if you're in this phase and you're around long enough, you're going to see the kid grow a lot and change a lot, and you're going to be around for all that. So it's a good time. I do love kids. They're just so fun. And they pretty much, if you just give them attention, they like you. And like, you don't get that with anybody else. Adults are frustrating, but kids are like, you just listen to them talk for a few minutes and they remember you forever. It's so cool. But I do have to be careful, obviously, because I am a dude, but I do very much enjoy hanging out with my friends' kids when they share them with me, and that's fun. And I also just kind of believe that, like, y'all have a level of, like, and to be fair, like, the stress, the cortisol probably balances out the oxytocin you get from having a kid around all the time. I don't know.
Sometimes,
but
yeah.
for me, it's mostly pure oxytocin when I come over. I do not have that level of that in my life. And so I come over here and, you know, after a stressful day at work or whatever it is, and I just get to enjoy, you know, whatever your daughter is talking about or doing, or, you know, whatever she wants to play. And that's just good time.
And honestly, sometimes it will be that we're headed towards the witching hour. Like we can see on the horizon, it will be a terrible leaving. And then we think to ourselves, oh, Kevin's coming over. Yes.
Because here's this person unencumbered by a whole day with a child, walking in with the emotional capacity to interact with our kid.
Yes.
And that gives us the room to do all of the other things that need doing in the last 2.5 hours of them being awake.
And her demeanor changes when you get here.
That's
and
true.
we're always so grateful because, again, the end of the day is just hard. And it is so nice for her to see your car pull up and go, Uncle Kevin, and even run out in whatever dress she's
wearing.
decided to put
wear
on
that day.
and run to see you and be excited, and then pull you into her playroom, and then we sit on the couch and go, for maybe 5 minutes, but still it's genuinely wonderful.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's what scientists call symbiosis. So I get some, you get some. It's great. It's fun.
I would say too, like that level of relationship. And if you're a single person and you're looking into this going like, oh man, that sounds awesome. Like that takes time and investment, and over time, your friends' kids who will eventually become your friends, like those kids will become your friends.
Yeah.
You build that relationship over time and grow into that excitement and that joy.
Yeah. There's just so many things that I can't do as an adult that you can do with kids. It's really fun. So, you know, get some kids in your lap, go build some sandcastles. Have fun. I think a lot of people, especially guys, again, this is not something I get because I just generally have always had kids in my life and have really enjoyed being able to be goofy and stuff. But it can be really intimidating to hang out with kids. And that can make it intimidating to hang out with couples who have kids, even if you transitioned through that with them sometimes. If you don't see them a lot, or, you know, you only see them a couple times a year or whatever, it just, you can be intimidated all over again, even though you've done it before. And I think a lot of people kind of just write themselves off as, I'm just not good with kids. And then they just don't try because they're like, well, I'm not good with kids. I can't outgrow that. Whereas you absolutely can outgrow that. You can get better. And, you know, you don't have to be good with all kids. You can just be good with that kid. And that's like any relationship, just takes time and effort, I think.
Well, the thing is, if they're biological, they got a bit of both of your friends who you love.
Yeah.
So there is something to love inside of that kid.
Yeah.
Kids are just people. And you don't have to be good with all people. You just have to be good with the people that you're with.
Yeah.
And I would say if you are a single person and you don't have kids and you're invited into a family's home that does have children, they are already okay with you interacting with their children.
Yeah.
If they were not okay with you having conversations with their kids or playing with their kids, they would not have let you into the house.
Yeah.
I think one point here, I wouldn't call myself quote unquote good with kids. But one thing that I probably didn't think about until a couple of years ago is that the dignity of children is just stripped away in our society and in every society. I don't know if anyone has ever talked to a kid like they are an adult. They eat it up.
Oh, yeah.
They eat it up. They are people. They are image bearers. They are worthy of your time, worthy of your care, and they will be the next generation. So do you want a part in that? Do you want to deny the image of God in this small child who was you once upon a time? Or do you want to engage with that? And really, there's a should here. There's a should you want to engage.
Right.
And the answer is yes. And again, I know that this message is hard. It's hard for my own heart. We are in a church that really affirms the dignity of children. We're not sitting there from the pulpit mandating that everyone get off of, birth control and have 10 children. But we are saying, let the little children come to me. And that was a message that I had to hear preached from the pulpit for maybe a year and a half before my hard heart finally softened to it. But it's a reality. Jesus wanted them to come to his heart. So why should we not? So the idea that you're not good with kids is really a poor excuse, honestly. You don't have to be the person that has 10 kids on your back and is pretending to be, a monster and going after that. You don't have to be that. Not every kid's like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they won't always be like that if they are now. Like there will come a day where they want intelligent conversation. If you're just willing to have it with them, it does dignify them a lot.
Yeah.
Like I said, it does take effort, but like kids are the most low pressure you'll ever have. Like they're so forgiving. If you ever do something, you're like, well, that was awkward. Like they really didn't, I tried this thing and they really didn't respond to that or whatever. Like they don't remember that stuff. They remember the things that you did well. Your daughter, when she was very young, when she would be getting changed or dressed or whatever on the changing table, Ryan had a hard time sometimes because she would get really squirmy and unhappy. And so I would sit up there and like talk to her and try to distract her for that period of time. And I've been wearing this necklace for a long time, and she would grab at it and put it in my mouth and I would spit it back out. And when she was, a year old, that was hilarious. And she's 3.5 now and it's still hilarious. She still does it.
She did it tonight before she went to bed.
So, they remember the little things that really work. And all you got to do is just play around and you'll find something eventually. Kids are very easily entertained.
I'll add to the concept originally came to me from a book from William P. Smith called Parenting with Words of Grace. And I highly recommend the book. But one of the points that he makes in the book is that this kid who's somewhere between 20 and 40 years younger than you, when you're in eternity together with that child, that 20 to 40 years that you have on them is nothing.
That's true.
Right? They are an image bearer who, Lord willing, will be in the kingdom, who you'll be with as a friend for eternity. And so start building those relationships now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is something that a lot of people would just roll their eyes and be like, oh, that's so corny or whatever. But I do think there's great worth in nurturing your inner child and not losing that as you get older. It's the children who Jesus, commends. That's that level of faith and trust and innocence is what he commends. And we still have that. We can nurture that. It's something you can exercise. And so the way C.S. Lewis always talked to children in his letters to children, I love reading those so much. It's really taught me how to talk to kids, is he never talks down to them. He meets them on their level because he still had that connection with his inner child. He could still see the world from a little bit of that vantage point of when everything was actually interesting and everything was magical and connect with that a little bit. And I think that's there. I think if you look for it, that's still there with you. And it's the things they're fascinated by, you can be fascinated by again too, and really enjoy with them. And so you mentioned earlier just how the family of God, you are given mothers and brothers and I guess aunts and uncles in my case. Your daughter, you've been very kind and always referring to me as Uncle Kevin, and it's something that she's come up referring to me as. She drops it sometimes when she's being informal and trying to get me to do things, but it still comes up. And like I think I wear that title much more proudly than a lot of other titles I have in my life. It's a testament to our friendship and also just, a recognition from you guys of my involvement and effort in her life. And it really means a lot. But I just think that really should be the norm, especially in a church, to have friends who are aunts and uncles that aren't related by blood. I think that's one of the most amazing pictures of the gospel there is. And again, directly from Jesus's mouth, we are told this is going to be a thing that we get. And adoption and then adoption by friendship are very big Christian principles.
Yeah, that's something that we are really passionate about, actually. Our daughter is probably going to be an only child. So we feel a lot of peace about the fact that that might happen because of the legitimate promise of the family of God. It surpasses blood relatives. It's deeper than your family on earth. You know, that verse when Jesus says, truly, there is no one who hasn't left brothers or sisters or mothers or fathers who won't receive 100-fold that in the present age, houses and brothers and sisters and mothers. So there is even now, while we are here in the present age, a family of God. And that's the way we need to act. So if we really believe that, you know, and our daughter won't have siblings, but she'll have sisters and brothers and uncles and aunts and grandparents through her church body, then we need to act like that. Put our money where our mouth is. You know, where else does that happen?
Yeah. Well, and growing up, I actually had 3 sets of grandparents, my mom and dad's parents. And then I actually had another set that I called Grandma and Grandpa Hefner. And when mom was pretty young, she had a best friend and she was over at their house all the time and we're very close. And then her friend died. And so they kind of just adopted my mom because, you know, my grandmother had to work a lot, so she wasn't around. And so, you know, mom just came around their house all the time. Grandpa Hefner gave her away at her wedding. So like, there's a lot of that just, you know, I grew up knowing them as grandparents and I never even questioned it. I was like maybe 12 before I realized, wait a minute, that's not normal, is it? And so, you know, but it was so natural and it was very beautiful. Like I think about that a lot as an adult, just how amazing that was. And, you know, that's the gospel. Like you said, that's people being there for each other and loving each other. So I do want to kind of help people brainstorm some ways that they can kind of enter their friend's house and interact with their kids that is, you know, edifying to the kids and hopeful to the parents at the same time. Because I think they can be both, as you were talking about earlier. So, you know, we can talk about our relationship, or if you've got some friends, you know, you've got several friends who do very well at this. If we just want to talk about a few of those things. One that comes right off the bat, you just mentioned it earlier, when I come in, it kind of gives you a reprieve from, you know, whatever state kiddo is in at the end of the day, very tired, very hangry, and food is coming, but she doesn't understand that you have to wait on food to be cooked sometimes. And so I can come
all
in
the time. You have to, food must be prepared.
Yes.
Every time.
Every time.
Just,
no
I'm
matter
ready for
who's
it.
preparing it.
Yes. And so I can, you know, be a distraction, you know, from that state of mind for a little while you cook, and it removes the stress from you while you're doing something that's, you know, very needed for everyone. And that can be helpful. And, you know, she can stay in this room and the 3 of us can talk while I'm hanging out with her. Like, it's not always just I'm taken away and y'all have a reprieve. Like, it can go a number of ways.
And again, like, they're kids. She's a kid. And so every time it's going to be a little different.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Yes, the different. And sometimes y'all text me on my way here and it's like, just prepare yourself. It's been a long day. And so that's kind of nice sometimes. And, you know, it just depends on the situation. But
Yeah. One practical thing that you do is you try to be on time. So a family's timeline revolves around bedtime. And for us, that's very early still. Every family's different, but for us, that's very early. So you being on time is kind of the difference between us starting dinner without you or us having dinner with you.
which you want to do.
Yes. We want to, you know, but you've always tried to be on time. And there is a very cool feature. This may age the podcast, but there's a very cool feature on iPhone to share your ETA. And that's super helpful for me because then I know when you'll be here. And even kind of cool because my daughter and I will look at it sometimes together and go, where's Uncle Kevin?
Right.
Okay, he's the blue dot, headed towards the other blue dot.
Yeah, I hadn't even made it down my stairs to get in my car to come over here one day. And you sent me a text. It's like, kiddo really wants you to share your ETA. I was like, I'm on it. I was 5 minutes away.
She wanted the excuse to look at the screen.
Right. Yes.
That's what that was.
For sure. Yeah. And that's a very simple thing. And again, if I'm running late and I don't let you guys know, or there's not a good reason for it, because traffic's a thing, it can happen. But like, if I'm not communicating that and I'm just not showing up on time, y'all are stuck here with a hangry child and y'all are suffering way more than I am. So, and I want to sit and eat and talk with you too. So yeah, punctuality. So ultimately, I guess, just be down to pitch in where you're at and where they're at and where the kid's at that particular day. Just be willing to come alongside and do life with them.
Like Halloween.
Oh boy.
One year. Where I had chosen a dinosaur costume, a Triceratops costume.
Which was adorable.
Which was adorable, but I had bought it a few months early and she grew.
Surprise.
But I was determined, and we were going to go to a Halloween party at the zoo, Kevin included. And I put her in it, and she starts crying her eyes out because it's way too tight.
When she couldn't get her arm through, it was like chicken wings.
Yeah, it's like cutting off her circulation. It's a bad situation. And I don't know what Ryan was doing at this point.
I think he was downstairs.
He was indisposed. Maybe you were getting ready.
Either getting ready or maybe I was running some errands.
That could have been
for
it.
something we needed.
Anyway.
I don't know. I was not around for this somehow.
Either way, Kevin's getting the full brunt. And I look at Kevin and I go, Kevin, get the scissors. And Kevin's holding her down while I'm cutting her out of her.
We're both like,
costume.
it's okay.
She's screaming. So it's a wonderful bonding experience.
Oh, yes.
But basically, yeah, just be down for whatever. It was one of those moments where you can't write stuff like that.
No.
Yeah.
And and you remember it forever. Like, we'll probably be telling this to her and she'll be like, stop, when she's like 13. I still have pictures, but
Yeah, and she wore that Triceratops costume with the sleeves cut off.
she looked like little
did.
Bam Bam or
She
Pebbles.
did.
Yeah. That'll age me too.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too, is that like, if you're around families with children, you are going to have those opportunities. You're going to have those times when you're just given a job and it's going to be crazy and insane. And you're going to get to tell fun stories afterwards because that's what it means to be around and in people's lives.
Be family.
Family.
I was here when this happened because I was doing life with them. So I did life with them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about, what single people can do to help with married people and make them feel loved. And, I just want to say some things that you guys in particular, but also other married friends have done to make me feel loved and also just a part of the family. And the one that I still remember the most, and things have changed a lot since then. I mean, it's a constant moving target in terms of what bedtime routine looks like for kiddo. But there was a period of time where, it was a little more involved. It involved, a book and a song and all this, which I guess it does still involve a little bit of that, just in a different order. But I kind of hung back in early days with the bedtime routines. Y'all are figuring it out. I'm just like, it's just not helpful for me to be around because I'm just going to stir her up again and she's not going to go to bed. And so I typically did dishes and trash and, sat on my phone and just things like that, stayed out of the way. But there was a night where it came and you said, because you always ask her, like, who you want to put you to bed tonight. And she looked and she said, Uncle Kevin. And y'all didn't bat an eye.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, y'all did not bat an eye. You're just like, okay, then let's go. And so, you're helping her brush her teeth and everything. And Ryan is like taking me through the drill. It's like, okay, here's what we do. Here's the book. She's going to want to read a book. She's going to try to read longer than supposed to. Don't tell her just one book, or whatever. And here's how you turn the lamp off in the sound machine, this order or whatever. And so, just set me up and shut the door. And there we were. And she was very sweet and cuddly. And I was reading her a book. And I have never been so nervous in my life. I was like, oh my gosh, here I am. But it was also just like, y'all were so ready for it. You anticipated it. And that meant a lot. Not only that you were willing to let me do it, but that you had already prepared the explanation and like, this is what we're going to do if she asks. And, I felt very seen and loved by that. And it happened a couple of times. And then these days I'm lucky if I get a hug sometimes, but I did tonight. So I feel very good. But yeah, that made a huge difference to me and just, made me feel very loved. And it was really cool because I came out of the room and Lauren says, good job. She'd been watching me on the monitor. And I was like, oh, now I'm even more nervous because I just sat there and sang and Lauren just watched the whole performance, but as it should have been. But I was just like, I'm glad I didn't realize that before. I've been even more nervous.
Sorry, I'm a snoop.
It's one of those things where it's like, there have never been lower stakes for me, but higher pressure. I put on myself.
Yeah.
So that was really great. And just to note before we move on, like, I've never been a part of the bedtime routine of any other kids that my friends have. So it's not like a diss if you're not, but it definitely meant a lot to me that I was. And just I'd been around and it was just kind of a consequence of that, but I really appreciated it. So kind of just going beyond mere helpfulness, I would love to hear just kind of thoughts on ways that single friends have interacted with your kids, things that you maybe appreciate, things that maybe you don't appreciate so much, and maybe even just some advice you could give us as single people on how to do that and not step on the parents' toes.
So I would say something that's really helpful there is just making sure that you're on the same team of the parents and that you're not giving their child some secret access to something that they wouldn't otherwise get to do. So that's everything from, well, to say it constructively and how it plays out. If their kid asks you for a dessert or even just more food at the table,
To play on your phone.
or to play on your phone or whatever, look for that eye contact approval or just ask or tell them they need to go ask their parents.
And then make sure they actually do.
And then, make sure they actually do.
Yeah.
And reinforcing to also, I guess that's a second thing, but reinforcing the parents' rules and what's going on there, man, makes such a difference in a kid's life when there are other adults besides their parents who are saying the same things.
Yes.
And even when a kid is 2 and 3 years old and doesn't even realize that there are alternate versions of reality compared to the reality that their parents give them, it makes a difference to have other adults telling your child the same things.
Yeah. You are building a relationship that will maybe last for that kid's whole childhood. So right now, it's you need to ask your parents before you can have a fry off of my plate.
Right.
But in middle school, in high school, you have no idea what that kid's going to come to you with. You know, I had some amazing friends of the family that I went to for some things that I didn't necessarily want to ask my mom.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they were a trusted source. I trusted them because they built that relationship with me, but my parents also trusted them.
Yeah.
They were okay with me going to that person for advice. They were okay with that person being in my life as a mentor. Quote unquote, it takes a village to raise a child. It really does. We're the family of God. We're all in this together.
Yeah. Don't undermine the parents because you want to be cool. They already have grandparents to do that. So
We love you, grandparents. We
yes,
We do
absolutely.
love you, grandparents.
Absolutely. And I get it. I so want to be, popular, but gotta check in. Well, at the end of our first episode, I asked if you had some things to share about your marriage that, you're particularly proud of or very hard won. And so this time I'm kind of curious to hear if there's some things about your relationship with your daughter that you particularly enjoy that's unique to her or have been a hard road leading to maybe a really joyful place.
I'll just share one that I feel like we haven't worked for, but the Lord has just blessed us with. And that is that her favorite book to read is the children's Bibles that we have. And she genuinely understands who Jesus is, that he's the Son of God, that he loves her. And she doesn't get the whole sense of the gospel yet. And that's fine. But just a deep sense and a deep love already in her life for who the Lord is and who Jesus is. And that's something that I just feel incredibly blessed by and is insane to watch in a 3.5-year-old.
Yeah, I bet that could really help you kind of see the gospel afresh too when you see a child interpret it. It could be really a huge blessing for you.
Yeah, this is perhaps more about our parenting and something that was honed in us. But we are very reactive people and tend to swing the pendulum too far when something happens. And you just can't do that as a parent. And we went through a pretty hard couple months, beginning of the year, this year, maybe. And we just kind of realized that we needed to be a lot more consistent with her and that was going to be different than what we had been doing and a transition for us and for her, and that she wasn't going to like it. That there were going to be fences and they were not going to be moved. She's our first. And so you learn on your first child. Sorry, every first child out there. But, we learned to continue to say, no, you can't have that cookie. No, you can't stay up late. No, whatever it was. And that was tough. There were battles, there were tantrums, and she's very smart. So she's really good at finding different ways to ask things. But the biggest thing you can do, especially if your kid is smart and is a little lawyer, is just continue to say, that's a good point. It doesn't change my mind. Or you can feel a way about it. It doesn't change my mind. I'm still here. I'm still consistent. And what that actually provides them is enormous consistency for the rest of their life. But what it provided us was a consistency in our souls, right? So we're trying to root this out for our daughter. But what it did is it actually rooted it out in our own lives. We stopped being waves tossed about to and fro by the winds of change. So it was one of those moments where you do better for your kids, but you end up sanctified in yourself.
Yeah. Well, I very much, in the same way as I watch my married friends to learn more about marriage, I watch my parent friends to learn more about parenting, because I do like kids. I would love for that to be a thing that happens someday if it's possible. But it's been so edifying for me to watch you guys, because I get kind of the full view, right? Like I hear all the stuff that you're doing. I see the way she's testing those things that you've said that she was testing all week long. I see it for myself. And y'all aren't passive. I appreciate that. You're not just winging it. You're really thinking about it. You really have reasons for the choices you make with her. As you just said, even when you don't, you catch yourself and you do. It makes me have a lot more sympathy and honestly affection for my own parents, just to realize they were just people our age winging this, trying their best with the information they had and all the unsolicited advice that they were given to raise a human being. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And also it's a very raw human thing. We're just doing the best we can. So yeah, I really appreciate that in you guys. And she's just one of the biggest joys of my life to be around. So, but well, guys, thanks for doing 2 episodes with me.
For sure.
I know it's not an easy thing to do and it's later in the night, but I really do appreciate it.
We love being here.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Next time on the podcast,
I don't expect single people to ask me and my wife both to come hang out. It feels really good.
I talked to my friends Jonathan and Liz about small groups, probably the most commonplace single and married people cross paths in a church setting.
I trust the members of our group to fold in the new people.
And why you should take advantage of the diversity and space they provide.
Come experience the melting pot of single, married with kids. There's a beauty in this.
This podcast is made by humans. We get things wrong. We have blind spots. So we want to hear from you. What are your experiences? Is there something we missed that you'd like to hear about? I'm working on some bonus episodes to fill in the gaps and really want your feedback. So please email the show at professionalthirdwheelpodcast@gmail.com. Or even better, leave a voice message by calling 615-953-0360. Join us ordinary people in helping other ordinary people. The show is edited and produced by me, Kevin Morris. Music by The Universal Donor. Logo by Kyle Patterson. We're a part of the Honest Edge Media Network. Check us out at honestedgemedia.com. And because I'm so bad at self-promotion, please help me out by sharing, or maybe leave a review, preferably 5 stars. This really helps the show be found by others who might benefit from it. You'll find new episodes in your feed the 1st and 3rd week of each month. So until next time. You know what's crazy? Since I started recording this podcast, over 5 of my married friends have had their first baby, so I feel like I'm learning these lessons all over again myself. I think the hardest thing about being the single friend to parents is how much muscle is required to hold a child for extended periods of time. And because you aren't doing it every day like mom and dad, it never gets any easier. I kid you not, I took one of my friend's babies into the lobby during a church service so they could listen to the sermon in peace. And from just about 30 minutes of that, my arm was completely blown out, sore an entire day afterwards. I'm not trying to be impressive, I'm trying to be known. Some people lift weights for their health, others for their looks. I guess I'm going to be doing it to hold my friend's kids.